What you're listening to at the moment is the so-called didgeridoo sound. It's actually quite funny because it was the last change that I did to the patch before I finally went live. Let me explain that. What you're actually listening to is the complex oscillator of the music easel. And obviously there's a lot of modulation there. Let's get down this gate. And you can hear that this kind of typical didgeridoo overblowing is controlled with this gate. This gate is triggered through the 281 coming out of the 225. It's like a half note or so that you hear. The whole system is clocked very slowly at about 45 BPM. And then if I turn down this gate, you can still hear that the bass sound is being modulated. One of the modulations is the timbre. And the timbre is controlled, modulated using the envelope generator with a very slow or long envelope. And the envelope again is triggered through the meta expander using the 225E. Now you can hear that even if I turn down this modulation here, there's still some modulation going on. And that's coming through the second modulation input of the meta expander in this case. So it's like a little bit of underlying modulation in addition to these two. And I can play around with to make it sound even more like a didgeridoo. But I kept it very subtle. And of course I'm trying to limit the high frequencies here so I don't open the gates up too much. Depending on what you like. We're listening to the second voice here. And you can hear the various elements if you listen closely. So one thing is the note is being held, so the gate is slightly open. So I always have a tone. And then we have the pulsar here generating, opening and closing the gate. And then you can hear how there is this vibration fading in and out and going faster and slower. This is courtesy of the meta expander using the slope generator. Yeah, and that's the main magic there. Alright, for the third voice I have to leave the second voice on, so kind of my string or brassy sound, whatever you want to call it. I have the bass here from the bass voice, if you want, the melodic element from the music easel. This is only the third voice, and it's mainly courtesy of beats. It is using the signal of the second voice, and I feed this or split feed this into beats and then pitch shift it for an octave up. And then the whole settings at beats just make sure that it's an element that happens rarely or seldom, and thus complements the original voice. I'll bring it back in. And I'm bringing in the fourth voice. So this has a couple of elements. As you can see, it's triggered by the 252 and just very sparsely. And it's there's also a melodic element to it, provided by the 251. Now they are combined going through the triple morphing filter. And you can hear a couple of effects. Specifically as effects, I have the magneto and the mimeophone. So the last two voices are these brassy elements. And they're made up of two parts. They are triggered by the 220. And again, it's there's a pattern that I've set, which is very sparse. It's just two gates in those 16 steps. And a couple of notes that I've chosen. The whole piece is in D Dorian. And the way that the brass voice works is it's two parts. They're both made with the DPO from Studio H, of which I have two in this rack right now. So let's quickly listen to the second voice. And the way that I've set it up is I'm using two envelopes. And you can hear how the second part of the voice is fading in later than the first. So when the first, like the more bassy part is already fading out, the more brassy part is fading in. And they're very long envelopes. Yeah, so basically the rest of the patch is mixing. I have the 6 channels, and I'm using a couple of LFOs to fade stuff in and out to keep things interesting. Otherwise I would have all the voices all the time. And for this I'm using the Ben Divkit Oct and also the Batumi, because I needed, you know, lots of modulation. Now I'm using the mixer from Befaco, and at the moment I have 4 effects. That's Magneto, it's Beats, of course, which does kind of the, you know, higher strings, and then just generally Burp pretty much across all the voices. And brand new in my rig is the FX8, and it's just wonderful how it gives this little extra at the end. Did you just hear that? That fades in. Yeah, that's it. That's the patch. Probably a couple of things I didn't really talk about. I'm using all of the modules in my rack except my frequency shifter in this patch, and I didn't touch upon a couple of these, but basically the rest is mainly attenuation. Okay, I hope you liked it. Join me again. I'm happy to answer any further questions, and I hope to see you in my next live stream.